This says Office of the White House, Office of the Press Secretary, December 9th, 2016. So this was the original White House executive order. Arctic environmental stewardship is in the national interests. In furtherance of this principle, and as articulated in the March 10th, 2016 US-Canada Joint Statement on Climate, Energy, and Arctic Leadership, the United States has resolved to confront challenges in a changing Arctic by working to conserve Arctic biodiversity, support and engage Alaska Native tribes, incorporate traditional knowledge into decision-making, and build a sustainable Arctic economy that relies on the highest safety and environmental standards, including adherence to national climate goals. So what happened in 2016? They put this forward and then it was revoked under the Trump administration, is that correct?
As far as we know.
Mm-hmm. And then when we were talking the other day, you said that things had really changed and that the tribal communities along the Bering Sea had gotten together to provide management, resource management. Am I saying that correctly?
No.
No? Okay.
That's what we're striving for, but you know, we're not anywhere near there.
I see. What needs to take place?
Well, for one thing, we need allies, and we need financial wherewithal to be able to bring all the regions together to discuss this and come up with a plan and implement the plan. I mean, this, you know, the regions don't have much money, and so they are only concentrating on issues within their borders. And the Bering Sea ecosystem requires all of these entities to be involved, so that we can have a voice on what is being done in the Bering Sea, rather than having an individual region talk about what they want. We talk about what we want in the Bering Sea as Native people. First of all, I would say Ang Wan, which is hello, my other self, which is the way that our people greet each other all the time. And I am a Nungin, which is in Western terms Aleut, but we don't call ourselves that because that was the name given to us by our former oppressors. So it means like the Yupik and the Inupiat and the Dene and all these other groups in Alaska. Unungan means the people, and in this case, we are the people by the sea, and we have a very rich history where we were the only people that didn't have footwear even in the wintertime. And we didn't have any food storage technologies except for air drying. I feel that, I believe that we are the only Alaska Native group that didn't have any food storage technologies. And we have been out in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years and we're still there. And I was born and raised on St. Paul Island, part of the Pribilof Island, in the middle of the Bering Sea. That is not part of the Aleutian chain, but is in the middle, up above the Aleutian chain, about 250 miles from the nearest land along the Aleutian chain. And this is, I was born and raised on an island that's very small. It's 12 miles wide and 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. And we had, when I was a child, about 1.2 million northern fur seals and 2.5 million seabirds, 1,000 reindeer, and 500 Unungan people in both St. George and St. Paul. St. George is our sister village 40 miles away. My traditional name was given to me at 4 years old by the last Kuyak that was left alive amongst my people. He gave me his name, and this is something that's been passed along for generations. And we would call each other Kuyak. And that name means like an arm extending out from the body, a carrier of ancient knowledge into modern times, a messenger. And I'm living the legacy of my name now. Anyway, to get to know my grandfather and for my grandfather to get to know me, I had to be with him 24/7 for 2 years, starting at age 4. I went to work with him. At that time, they were slaves of the federal government, and but nevertheless, he would take me to work with him every day. I would drink tea with him and his friends every night. I would pray with him every day, where we'd go down to the Bering Sea and take off our shirts and spray ourselves with the Bering Sea, praying towards the east. And that evening, we might go to the Russian Orthodox Church. He didn't see any importance in where one got one's spirituality. And he taught me the basics of why and how my people survived and thrived in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years. And it was a day, I mean, Pribilof Islands are called the birthplace of the winds. So we get wind all the time. But in this day, it was perfectly calm. There was no wind. The sea was perfectly flat, and there was no cloud in the sky. We get 20 days of sunshine a year in the Bering Sea. And so this day was very unusual. And the seals were barking, and the birds were singing, and I just, at 4 years old, I had to remark in Unungan Tunu, the Aleut language. I said something like, "It's sure beautiful," and he just puts his finger to his lips and says, "Tutuda." And that's all he said. And what he said probably encapsulates why our people survived and thrived in Bering Sea for over 10,000 years. And that is that we should listen and not remark, because as soon as we say a word about or try to express our feelings, we diminish the experience. So the most important of human experiences are not to be vocalized, that we need to just take it all in. And that's the way my people were, that we developed the most densely populated linear mile of shoreline in North America for our time, in a place that's hard to eke out a living. And the reason for that is that my people understood that we had to be present in the moment and in the heart. The rest will be taken care of. And it requires a trust in every aspect of being a human being, that we had to embody this trust at the cellular level, where we trusted in ourselves, our lives, trust in our community, trust in the land, the sea, trust in the Mother Earth, universe, and the person, the being that we call a role, that we need to trust at such a level that that there was not a shred of doubt in our bodies. And with that kind of trust, everything is taken care of if you're in the heart and present in the moment. And that's the way my people were. And when I asked my elder on St. Paul, he was Father Lestenkoff, he said, look at the birds. Do you think that they worry about where they're going to get their food the next day? And are we any different? And of course, the answer is no, that we are not any different, that the animals don't worry about where they're going to get their food the next day. And people, we've forgotten what our niche is, so we've deviated from that norm of knowing or not worrying about where our food is going to come from. And that's a very rich upbringing that I had. I mean, my generation was the last generation and had a very traditional upbringing where all people in the village, all adults in the village literally raised me. And every day when I would walk out, starting at 4 years old, if I encountered an adult, they always affirmed me. Good boy. And that's where I was greeted by every adult every day from age 4 to age 13. That was quite a way to grow up. Then I'd be greeted in everybody's household like the long lost son whenever I went there. I would, a day or night, I would go to a house and they would say, come in, sit down, eat. That's the way I was greeted every day. And I had to spend equal time with the men, equal time with the women, with the elders, and with my peers. And so with the elders, they would take me out camping with them every time they went out camping. And I would hear their stories for years from age 5 to age 13. And the men would take me out hunting and fishing with them and teach me the men's ways. The women would teach me the women's ways. And of course, with my peers, all I had to do was play. And the adult's job was to create the space for me to learn, not tell me what to learn, how to learn, or to define anything. I grew up not asking a single question. I had to depend upon myself. And the ingenuity of it is that we are allowed as children to expand out to the maximum of our capability without the dictates of an adult. Nowadays we do the opposite, where we tell the kids what they need to learn, how they need to learn it, teach them how to learn it, and so over time we're dumbed down as human beings. And so anyway, that's where I grew up, and I was never scolded. Most people were scolded when they were kids. Our people did not believe in scolding kids because we are considered spirit beings in human form. And as spirit beings, we're easily traumatized. And so we have to be very careful about what we say and how we say it. And so that, in essence, is the kind of upbringing I had.
I have one question, and I think it's important as a story to tell non-native people. And that was your perception as a young man, and you told me the story previously of being 6 years old and going down to the bird cliffs, but you mentioned how it is that you can get a sense of a place so rich with so many animals and so much activity.
You know, this is an island that's 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. You have 1.2 million northern fur seals and 2.5 million seabirds. So all this life is concentrated on the periphery of the island. It's quite intense, but a beautiful place for a child to be raised. Anyway, as part of my upbringing, I could wander anywhere I wanted, day or night, unsupervised by an adult. The only time the adult would intervene is if they were concerned about our safety. But so I loved the seabirds, and so I decided when I was 6 years old that I'm going to walk out of the village. 3 miles is the nearest bird cliff of intensity. So I would walk out to the village 3 miles at nighttime at 3 o'clock in the morning to get there before sunrise. And because at sunrise, the birds stir off the cliffs. And they are, I mean, we had all kinds of species, you know, thick-billed murres, common murres, least auklets, crested auklets, tufted puffin, horned puffin. All of these kinds of birds, they were just a cacophony of sound that I cannot describe to you. But when you get underneath the cliff, I would cross over large basalt boulders and to get underneath the cliff, and then sun would peek out, and then the birds would start stirring and flying, and they would circle in front of the cliffs, waiting to collect members of their own species before they go out foraging. So here's all these species flying at different heights, different speeds, and diagonally right, diagonally left. I mean, it was apparent chaos. But I noticed when I was 6 years old that they never even clipped a wing. And you can't imagine, there must have been at least 10,000 seabirds underneath that cliff. 10,000 seabirds, and none of them even hit each other. They didn't even clip a wing. And so I wondered, how do birds do that? You know, and I was 6 years old, and I said, well, birds don't think. And so I said, I want to be a bird. And so I focused on not thinking for maybe 2 months until I got it where I wouldn't have a single thought running through my head for hours, and I can still do that today. And it was just magical. Then the hunters would take me out hunting with them. There'd be 4 or 5 hunters in the group, and we would go out to the edge of the island and wait for stellar sea lions to come by. And sometimes we wait for 7, 8 hours for one sea lion to come by. And the ocean that we're facing is 180 degrees of ocean. We're on an island. And, you know, by noontime, I mean, we'd get out there very early in the morning, just at sunrise, just like I did with the bird cliffs. And I noticed by noontime, I would get sleepy and daydreaming, but the hunters, they never did. And they weren't talking very much. They weren't moving very much. They were just sitting on the basalt boulder, looking out to the sea for a sea lion to come by. And that's all. And by noon, you know, I'd get daydreamy or sleepy or whatever, but the men never did. And I wondered, how could they do that? That's magical. And then I noticed that one hunter would say, "Kawakako, sea lion coming." And instantly, and I mean instantly, all the men would look at one spot in the ocean. Out of 180 degrees of ocean, the sea lion could be anywhere in that water, but they looked at one spot. And so I looked and I looked and I looked and didn't see a sea lion until about, the men still were looking at that place very intently. So I knew that it must be there. And sure enough, the sea lion would pop up between 5 and 10 minutes after that person said, "Kawa kako," and the sea lion would appear right where they said. And I thought that was really magical until I realized that what the birds taught me, the hunters already knew, and that I was never told any stories about this. I just found that out. And so what the birds were doing was what I decided to do when I went out hunting, was to stop thinking. And as soon as I did that, that's when the magic happened. I could feel the sea lion before it appears, where it's going to appear from. And then I applied that same understanding to fishing, where we use hook, line, and sinker to fish for halibut. And same magic happened, where I could feel the halibut before it hit the line. I can tell you when it bites the bait, whether or not I hook it by the lip or the jaw or the side of the body. I can tell you what size it is: 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot halibut. I can tell you generally whether or not it's male or female, and how it's going to fight on the way up. And all of this information is very necessary for a good hunter and fisherman. You have to have these abilities if you're going to be good at what you're doing. And all the men were good at it because they had to be, where they were getting food for the village, for their families, extended families, and for elders and for widows. And so being a good hunter and fisherman was very important. And ever since then, I would use that not thinking in whatever I do. And it has led me successfully through all of the trials and tribulations of life, where now I am 71 years old, and I still use it. That it guides me in what I do. This is probably what people call faith, but it's a faith to a degree that most people don't understand. It's a faith that is embodied at the cellular level. And that when you are that way and you are in the heart and present in the moment, the rest is taken care of. Ever since I've done that, everything that I needed was provided for every year. And I can't explain that except that that's how my people survived and thrived in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years.
You speak with a lot of groups and college groups and these kinds of things. And do you feel with people that have not had this experience that they have difficulty understanding or imagining, or do they have a way to connect with what you're saying? Does the lesson get across to more urban people or others not from St. Paul?
It's kind of like trying to ask a two-dimensional being to look at the third dimension. You can't imagine it until you experience it. And so with the students, like I'm a visiting scholar at Columbia University, for example, I lead them through processes where they can experience it. And initially, they might experience it for 30 seconds or even less, 15 seconds. But once they do that, they have an idea of what this means to be not focused on the head. And traditionally, people in Alaska we would say that the heart would tell the mind what to do. And the mind's job is to implement what your heart is telling you. And today we reverse that, where the mind is telling the heart what to do. And the Yupik elders call this the reverse society, or the inside out society, because we reversed all the laws for living. And one of the most salient ones is that the mind is now in charge, when the heart used to be in charge. And the elders that I work with, one of the things that I helped start was the wisdom weavers of the world. We're still in existence, and we're going to go do a lot more this year with elders from all the tradition, or many of the traditions around the world. I brought together elders from every continent to answer two questions. One, what is the state of the world as they see it now? And two, what must we be doing now? And as a result of that, we created a team that is launching what the elders say on social media. We launched by Reuters last year on Earth Day, and we did a film, 14-minute film, that was seen by over 80,000 people worldwide. Was translated into 15 different languages. With this message, the reason that we're doing this is because they said, Mother Earth, she has survived for billions of years. She's going to survive for billions more. It's a question about whether or not we humans are going to survive. And it's going to be decided by people in this lifetime. And that what it requires is that we reach our gift within our hearts. The hearts, from our understanding, is the only place that is in connection with the divine. And it's never guides us wrong. It always guides us impeccably right. And that when we're present in the moment and in the heart, we will access the gift that we have individually for the world. Every single human being alive today is here for a purpose, because we're facing literally life or death decisions for our species. And that we need these gifts. And the only way to get them is to hear your heart. And now it's very hard to reach, because the mind clutters up everything and makes us think that it's the heart speaking, when it's in reality the mind. And so every solution, as viewed by the elders, every solution that's being brought forth by the state-of-the-art technology, state-of-the-art thinking, is nothing but the old regurgitated as the new. And so we're focused, even Einstein said, you can't solve the problem with the same consciousness that created the problem in the first place. But that's exactly what we're doing. And so unless that changes and shifts dramatically, we're done for.